Morrowind, the 5th game in the Elder Scrolls series, the 3rd main titled game. For those of you who haven't seen the previous episodes in What If Skyrim Was Good, What If Oblivion Was Good, and What If Morrowind Was Good, I highly recommend clicking the link in the video description to go back to episode 1. It'll save you a lot of confusion and me making fun of you in the comments section. Yeah, I'm a jackass. Alright, so in the previous episode, we were talking about Morrowind's mechanics and how they could be made better with a combination of mods and the OpenMW engine. For those of you who don't know, OpenMW stands for Open Morrowind. It is an open-sourced engine where programmers can more or less hop in and make their own version of Morrowind with hard-coded things that bypass the scripting engine entirely, thus making the impossible for, say, Oblivion or Skyrim, possible. So in the previous series, where I constantly said, it's never going to happen, in the case of Morrowind, it is actually possible to do virtually anything with a skilled enough programmer. Unlike Oblivion and Skyrim, I don't actually have a major problem with Morrowind in terms of story or questing. This is mainly because I use Daggerfall and Morrowind as my baseline for the Elder Scrolls story, and I tend to apply criticisms to Oblivion and Skyrim using those as a model. Just like I've been applying criticism to Morrowind using Oblivion and Skyrim's mechanics as a model. None of the games in the series are perfect, and that's the whole point of this series, is everything could be made better. But in terms of story, I've really felt like I had to reach for Morrowind. Number 1, I'd like to see a little bit of a consequence for you being a faction leader in Morrowind. Morrowind had the best factions in the Elder Scrolls, and that's because not only did some of the factions hate each other, but there were actual requirements for your character in order to advance to the next step. It wasn't just, oh, complete these arbitrary set of objectives and we'll promote you. No, they will literally say, no, you don't qualify because you aren't skilled enough in this skill or that skill. They knew that you just weren't up to snuff. Because who the hell's going to promote a guildmaster that's completely unqualified? Oh wait, they do that in Skyrim, don't they? Well, either way, I love the guilds in Morrowind. However, at the very end of it, when you've become the leader, it just kind of is a dead end. You ask for a task or something, and they go, I can't give you any orders, and I'm thinking, scratching my head like, well, what do I do then? And the answer is go play a different guild or go adventure. And I would like to see instead, number 1, a bodyguard that you can acquire. You see, Morrowind has followers, and they're only really a part of quests. So I'd like to see a follower for each faction as your kind of, oh, you're the leader, this is your bodyguard. In addition, I'd like to see some follow-up tasks that the guild needs doing on occasion. Say every 30 to 60 game days, a new task would appear. This would just keep the game from getting too stale because you've done everything. I'd like the ability to either do that task yourself or to pawn it off to a different guild member and basically say, you go do it. And that would be rather fun to see if it gets done or not. And they come back and admit their failure and you gotta do it anyway. Or they successfully did it and then you authorize their reward. Basically, add a little bit of spice to you being the faction leader. Now, something that I didn't see in Elder Scrolls games in general, but really needs to be in there story-wise, so why not build mechanics around it? I like to see town guards, or any NPC that you don't have a positive relationship with, say 65% or higher, and of course any non-quest NPCs, because we don't want to be escorting an NPC and have this happen, but the point is, if you summon undead minions or Daedra in the middle of a town, that should be considered a crime, at least disorderly conduct or disruptive behavior or endangering the public good, whatever. Make it a crime, make them go after you. That's what I want to see. I don't like the fact that I can summon like 4 minions around a guy, then kill him. And watch all the minions just jump on top of the guy. It's like, you had sufficient warning, I was summoning things in front of you. Alright, so moving on with the main quest story. There's a period in the main quest when you get the Moon and Star Ring, which is proof of your ascendance as Lord Nerevar. What I would like to do is to see if you didn't join any of the other great houses, and you get that Moon and Star Ring, and then you go to the Tribunal Temple and more or less get acknowledged as Lord Nerevar, have the Ordinators get called off more or less, you should be able to go to House Indoril and say, I am Lord Nerevar Reborn, I'm here to rejoin my great house. And maybe the Ministry of Truth would be your base from then on. Either way, the point of it is that Indoril was one of the most interesting great houses, and yet you couldn't join them. And I thought that was crazy. Now, to swing the other way, when you defeat your first Dagoth, you are infected with the Corpus disease. This is supposed to be a blessing from Dagothr, an initiation into his house. I would like to see a diverging path where you can basically screw over all of Morrowind. I'd like to see a diverging questline where you can basically bring down the ghost fence, help spread the plague, more or less become one of the Dagoths, go over to Dagoth and basically hand him Wraithguard. I think that would be freaking awesome. You would have to do kind of a speech check or some kind of check, because if you remember, during the dialogue, he basically says, you know, if I had given you the option, would you have joined me? And you could say yes. And he would have said, well, there's nothing to stop me from killing you now. Well, there should be a way, if you had, you know, helped to bring down the ghost fence, killed the living god Vivek, presented him with Vivek's head or something like that. Been like, here's the severed head of Vivek. Can I join you now, Dagoth? Persuade him, more or less. So these were all woulda, shoulda, coulda nitpicks that, you know, kind of would make the game a lot better, but aren't mandatory. Compared to this last one, which I believe is fatal to the game, at least for me. You are told in a note exactly how to perform the ritual in becoming a living god, but in that same note they tell you don't do this, and then the game tells you to do something else, specifically in order to unbind the heart and more or less complete the main quest. What I want to see done, what I really want to see done, is a mechanical ability to actually perform that ritual. You see, you're told, storyline-wise, exactly how to do it, and you can actually do those actions in-game. The problem is that there's no script that detects whether or not you perform that action and then levels you up to godhood. And that bothers me because there is no storyline reason at all. Nothing stopping you from doing it, other than that the developers didn't program in a consequence. If you did become a living god and then used your brand new god powers to defeat Dagothr, you should exit the heart chamber and meet Azura out there just like you would normally. You know, when you unbound the heart and fulfilled her prophecy. Except this time she should be pissed and she should be a boss fight. You should have to use your brand new god powers to barely survive. I expect that like 9 times out of 10 Azura is going to kill your face, but there should be a way for you to just overcome her. And once you've slain that particular aspect or avatar or whatever of her, then you can go and be free, leave the Red Mountain as a living god. At that point, both Vivek and Amalexia should turn against you, so Tribunal DLC is a no-go at that point. But what does a living god do other than avoiding Ordinators who kind of want you dead? You know, you could do whatever the hell you want. You're Lord Nerevar Reborn with ultimate power, and you've pretty much screwed the world. If you join the House Dagoth, you've pretty much screwed the world, no matter what you do. Now, there is something that I would like to see. If you actually joined House Indoril, I would like to see a kind of addition to the Tribunal DLC where you can be on more intimate terms with Amalexia because, hey, I'm Lord Nerevar Reborn, I've been pronounced that. Let's have a chat, husband to wife type of deal. I imagine it could change the course of the story just a little bit. Ultimately, it would always end up in the same spot, but that's something else. And that's pretty much it. Very, very small nitpicks I have about Morrowind's story where it could have been done better. But otherwise, the key components of Morrowind's storyline are great. The factions are great. They just needed a little more oomph to them, if you know what I mean. And ultimately, Azura's prophecy being a kind of pigeonhole, I I feel like it should respect your freedom of choice a little bit more, thus the idea of joining Dagoth or using the heart to become a god, being these alternate endings to the game, more or less. So let's break into little nitpicks, because over the past week, I've been playing a lot of Morrowind, specifically to refresh my memory about the game and its details. And one of the things I'd like to see built into OpenMW, or should I say the user interface of OpenMW, is the ability to sort your inventory by name. This is a feature that was available in Skyrim's Sky UI mod, where you're able to open up your inventory. There's a little text box in the corner. You type in the name of the item, and it disappears all the items that don't match that keyword. That way, if you had like plate armor of flames, you can just type in the word plate, and then everything that had the keyword plate in its name would be visible. Everything else would be gone off your list. The second thing I'd like to see is Jackson's Positioner in Morrowind. For those of you who don't know what Jackson's Positioner does, it basically made Hearthfire bearable for me, where you're actually able to pick up a table, rotate it, delete it, put the table in your inventory, move it somewhere else, put it back down, rotate, size up, size down, so on and so forth. I was able to take my really crappy Lakeview Manor from Falkreath Hold in Skyrim, and I was able to replace the fireplace with the Falmer Throne from the Dawnguard DLC, and then I took where the dining room table was supposed to be, and I set up a red carpet leading from the door to it, so it was kind of like a great hall. I added a coffin to either side, and I put some cages around to hold the corpses of people I killed. All in all, just look up Jackson's Positioner. I want that in Morrowind, so that when I get a player home or I get my own room somewhere, I get to customize it the way I want. This wouldn't be possible in regular Morrowind. It's only really possible in the Creation Engine, which is basically an upgraded version of the Morrowind and Oblivion engine. It's still game bio, but in the OpenMW engine, you pretty much have free license to do whatever the hell you want, provided that it is programmed sufficiently. And I would like to see Jackson's Positioner done in Morrowind. That's pretty much it. Now, something I would also like to see, I like the ability to just drop anything anywhere, and so I have piles of items sitting around the Mages Guild. But what I'd like to see is NPCs clean up. NPCs steal stuff that isn't in protected property. So if you, say, left a skooma bottle in the middle of Balmora, which I have done for the past, I'd say 40 game hours now, a guard should pick it up, take it with them. NPCs should more or less pile up items until they've maxed out their carry weight limit, and possibly transfer the items to a container, maybe an evidence chest in the local Imperial garrison. There's Imperial garrisons all over Morrowind, so that's possible. I just want to see a reason why you don't want to leave an item dropped on the ground for a while. I don't want it to be purged from existence. I want it to be relocated somewhere else, either put into an NPC's inventory where you have to kill them, or taken to a secure location that you'd have to break into. This would really incentivize players to have their own player homes, I think, and would really add to the feeling like, this is my place, and this public area maybe not so good for piling up my stuff. Thus, it would give you the idea of a public space actually being public, as opposed to the entire world being your sandbox to drop crap. And finally, my last nitpick of the week from having played all this Morrowind is music changes. You see, I really, really love Morrowind's main theme, and I love its traveling theme. When you're just wandering around adventuring, it gives you that sense of high fantasy. It really does. The music in Morrowind is beautiful. However, it's also very unfitting for certain situations. For example, if I go into a Dwemer ruin, and then I get into a combat, you know, it's this extreme combat as I'm fighting a dwarven spider in an area where I can barely see. I manage to kill it, and I can hear this tapping around a corner, like there's still a dwarven spider, but I'm not in combat with it. And so it goes back to this happy dun 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 theme, and I'm like, I'm in a dank, dark ruin, this evil-looking place, you know, where anything could jump out at me and kill me any second. You know, a steam centurion might come bust through the door and kill me. But no, because we've ruined the atmosphere with this happy, happy song, which I love in the overworld. I'm not advocating the removal of the happy, happy song. I am advocating the transitioning of songs based on where you are. In other words, Dwemer Ruin should have music more like Oblivion's Ayleid Ruin song. Things like that. Ultimately, I believe Oblivion had the best music in all of the Elder Scrolls, and I would love to see some of its songs transitioned into Morrowind if possible. Or some kind of remix of the Morrowind songs where it actually feels area appropriate or situation appropriate. So that's about it. I know this episode has been fairly short and fairly underwhelming compared to my what if Oblivion was good and what if Skyrim was good, but that's just because, again, I'm using Daggerfall and Morrowind as the baseline for story, and I'm using Oblivion and Skyrim as the baseline for mechanics, trying to construct a better Elder Scrolls game, at least in this grand thought experiment. So I hope you guys liked it. I definitely plan to, if I come across any other details, make some follow-up videos. This is an open-ended series for an open-sourced engine. So definitely expect, as I start coming up with ideas, to have follow-up episodes, but for now, we're done. Watch episodes 1 and 2 for what I'd consider to be the ideal Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. The reason why there's a ton of criticisms that I haven't been giving is because Morrowind Rebirth fixes the cities to my specifications. There's a mod in production known as Outlander, which is going to fix a lot of other things. There is a mod called Tamriel Rebuilt, which is adding the mainland. There is a mod called Less Generic NPCs, which fixes the idea of all the NPCs. Ultimately, I'd love to see compatibility patches to ensure that all of these mods work together under one unified, better version of Open Morrowind as depicted in my episode 1 of What If Morrowind Was Good. And just we could combine all of these ideas and concepts and mods into one single suite of this is best Morrowind. That is my ideal Elder Scrolls. Thank you all for watching. Check the social media links for more content. I will see y'all next time.